Madison Square Garden, New York City, WWE on a stage that is supposed to feel historic. And somehow, on one of the biggest roads to WrestleMania, this show gave us a little bit of everything. Cody Rhodes getting checked by Stephanie McMahon Helmsley. The Usos losing in shocking fashion. Brock Lesnar and Obafemi nearly tearing the place apart. Seth freaking Rollins getting cleared and immediately getting choked out by Gunther. And CM Punk ending the night by putting Roman Reigns through a table in the middle of absolute New York City chaos. This was not a subtle episode of Raw. This was WWE throwing storyline after storyline at the wall and saying, "You want WrestleMania season? Here, take all of it." Welcome to the Tea Drop, strong brew, no soft behavior. We're breaking down a loaded-ass Raw from Madison Square Garden. What worked, what felt messy, what got over, and whether WWE is building excitement or just stacking angles on top of angles until the whole thing explodes. So let's get to it. We open very heavy. This show was heavy on the WrestleMania build. Maybe a little too heavy, because if you're somebody who watches Raw and wants the wrestling itself to breathe a little more, this probably wasn't your favorite episode. But if you watched this time of year mainly for movement, heat, big names, and major segments, WWE absolutely gave you that. That was the identity of this show. Less about match quality, more about momentum, more about stacking the board, more about making sure almost every major name heading into WrestleMania has something happening around them. And in that sense, Raw felt huge. Messy at times, yeah, but huge, I guess. The show opened in New York City with Cody Rhodes out in Madison Square Garden. Why the hell was he here? He belongs in SmackDown. Well, his reason is because he's the main champion, the WWE heavyweight champion, and that championship was made and built in Madison Square Garden. So it makes sense for him to be there. So that was his excuse to be there. But anyway, and right away, it had that big fight atmosphere, I guess, given that Cody is there. Cody is already walking into WrestleMania with Randy Orton waiting for him. And before he can even really settle it into a segment, here comes out Stephanie McMahon. And honestly, this was not the direction I expected. I don't think many thought that was going to happen, but it worked. Stephanie basically came out to tell Cody something he didn't want to hear. That this version of Randy Orton, 2009 Randy Orton, is not somebody Cody fully understands. That Cody wants to believe he can bring out the best in people, but Randy's not built for that right now. Randy is darker, nastier, dangerous, and Stephanie's point was simple. Cody cannot beat this Randy by being the version of Cody he is right now. That was a strong statement from her because it immediately reframed the match, or at least hopefully it reframed it for Cody, because it stopped being just champion versus challenger and it turned into a question of identity. Can Cody adapt? Can Cody get ugly? Can Cody stop trying to be the clean hero long enough to survive somebody like Randy Orton? And then Cody fires back by reminding Stephanie that Randy has done a lot of things they cannot even show on TV. If you guys remember the punts he did to all the McMahon families before WrestleMania 25. And some of them involved her. Exactly my point. That line had bite. Then Cody doubled down by saying he is not Dusty and Stephanie is not her father either. And that's when the segment really hit. Obviously, Stephanie slaps him. That was the moment, not because the slap itself was shocking, but because it told you, Stephanie, welcome to the Arrowheads, Laura. Much appreciated. Stephanie wasn't here for some cute Hall of Fame cameo. By the way, she's getting inducted as the Hall of Fame headliner. No biggie. She was here to shake Cody and remind him that sentiment won't save him at WrestleMania. Tough love segment, strong start, good heat, good tension. And honestly, one of the better openings promos WWE had done on Raw in a while. The fact that we needed Stephanie to do that is crazy. Randy twisting Jeff Hardy's ear with the screwdriver was insane. And oh my God, don't remind me of that. That was insane too. Yeah, get those arrows up. I will put more, guys, I will be putting more emojis as the time passes. I just put some for now. You'll get more, don't worry.
You are guest.
We move on to the next segment. This show also had that very modern WWE thing where serious WrestleMania build is happening right next to a total randomness. You had IShowSpeed backstage asking Adam Pearce where Danhausen is. Then Danhausen appears. talks curses, LA Knight pops in, Pierce asks if Danhausen is supposed to disappear, and Danhausen just doesn't. It was weird, quirk, silly, and honestly, that kind of sums up the pacing of the entire show. WWE kept bouncing between major WrestleMania stakes and internet era level chaos. Sometimes that works, sometimes it makes the show feel like 10 different tones are fighting at once. This was one of those nights where it was definitely the second one. We move on to the Usos versus Theory and Logan Paul for the title. The World Tag Team title street fight. Obviously, every time you're in New York City, you have to have a street fight. They had it last year at NXT when they had it NXT and MSG. Now they did it here. They had all the ingredients to be the kind of match the crowd could really sink its teeth into. The Usos, Logan Paul, Austin Theory, weapons, Madison Square Garden, LA Knight on commentary, IShowSpeed at ringside. It had spectacle written all over it, and the match itself moved exactly the way you would expect. Fast start, trash cans, kendo sticks, table spots, interference, brass knuckles, bodies flying around, all of it. It never really slowed down long enough to become anything deep, but it didn't need to. This was built to create moments, viral moments, then came the finish. Jimmy gets caught by Logan with the brass knucks, Jay is taken on the floor, and Austin Theory scores the pin. And we get new champions. That is a big result on paper, the kind of result that should feel massive at MSG. But I'll be honest, it also felt like one of those WWE swerves where the shock value lands harder than the logic. Not because Logan and Theory can't get heat, it's because they absolutely can. But because the match itself felt like it existed just long enough to get the title change without fully earning the gravity of it. Still, it got a reaction, got heat, and now the fallout matters more than the match. Because the first thing people are going to think is not, wow, what a classic. They're going to think, how is Roman going to react to the Usos losing those belts? Maybe. I don't think Roman really cares right now, but we'll see. And that means the finish did its job. Not only that, poor little IShowSpeed got his butt kicked by LA Knight at his live stream later this week. But we got new champs, and one of them is Logan Paul again. We move on to another segment with Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan came out next and made it clear that her issue with Stephanie Vaquer is personal. And not wrestling personal, real personal. She called her out, insulted her, dragged Judgment Day into it, and basically told her that if Stephanie shows up, it is on site. Stephanie did show up, and sure enough, it was on site. The brawl started fast, but then Roxanne Perez, out of nowhere, jumping behind Stephanie, turned this into something bigger. Suddenly, Liv and Roxanne are working together again. Stephanie gets dropped onto a chair with Oblivion, and Liv stands tall over her with the title. That's effective heel television at its best, I guess. Simple but effective. Liv came off mean, Roxanne came off opportunistic as she does. Stephanie came off like somebody now fighting uphill. It did exactly what it needed to do, and in a Mania season where so many segments are overloaded with exposition, this one was refreshingly direct and to the point. So kudos for her. This is probably the better match out of the three women matches we're getting, to be honest. I don't care about Rhea and Jade. I don't care at this point about AJ and Becky because we've seen it already. It's not that high of a momentum. But anyway, we'll move to the other women thing that's probably going to happen. It's the women's tag division. So the women's tag team title match had a lot happening. Nia Jax and Lash Legend defending against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria already gave the match some size and some star power. But then WWE layered in the Bellas, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, and eventually a disqualification that turned the whole thing into a mess. Now, to be fair, that was probably the point. Clearly wanted to set up the bigger multi-team direction. And this match was more of a launching pad than a destination. But the issue is that when you do that too often, the match starts feeling less like a match and more like a device. That's what this felt like. I will say this though, Lash Legend stands out. The upside is obvious. The size, the presence, the athletic profile, it is all there. But you can also still see that she needs more ring seasoning. That is not even really a criticism at this point, just reality at this point. The potential is there, but the polish still needs time. By the end of this segment, the focus was no longer the title match itself, it was the chaos after it. That's Mania season booking in a nutshell. We move on to Brock Lesnar, Obafemi, and a segment built to feel dangerous. Out of nowhere came out one of the biggest segments on the show. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman came out, Brock in fighting gear, ready to fight, looking like somebody who generally came ready to break something. Heyman cuts the usual great Heyman promo, painting Brock as a man nobody wants to fight with when he's locked in. Brock calls Obafemi out, though. He interrupts Paul Heyman, calls him out. He's like over this. He just wants to fight at this point. Adam Pearce comes out instead and tries to shut it down because he wants to preserve the main events for WrestleMania. Makes sense. Then Oba comes out anyway. And from there, it turns into exactly what it should have been. Violence. Oba tears through security like no one I ever seen. He literally threw and chucks a man over his shoulder like nothing. Just like nothing. Pierce gets launched into the barricade. Brock and Oba finally stands face to face. And then Paul Levesque himself, Triple H, steps in between them like this is some UFC style pull-up. I guess that's a TKO style visual now. But I guess it makes it more meaningful to do that because it made the confrontation feel bigger than a normal wrestling angle. It made it feel like WWE sees this as a real attraction for WrestleMania 42. And look, when Brock threw the steel steps and the randomly F5, the security guy on the way out, that was classic Brock. Ridiculous in the best possible way. This segment worked because it understood the assignment. Brock and Oba do not need a 10-minute talking segment. They need presence, menace, and the feeling that if they really touch, something is going to go terribly wrong, and that's what WWE gave us. We move on to Finn Balor. He finally talks like a man who's done waiting. Finn Balor's promo about Dominic Mysterio was one of the cleaner character moments on the show. He talks about Judgment Day being a family. He admits he made mistakes, and then he drops the most impossible line. His worst decision was thinking he could make a man out of Dominic. Pretty good. Because it gives Finn some edge back instead of just being another guy orbiting the group's drama. He sounded like somebody who feels betrayed, embarrassed, and ready to correct his own mistake, saying he helped create Dominic and now he'll be responsible for destroying him at WrestleMania. This is exactly the kind of framing that this feud needed. No fluff at all. No overcomplication in the matter. Just a veteran finally sounding tired of the nonsense. Pretty decent segment. We get Penta versus Kofi Kingston. Penta was defending the Intercontinental title against Kofi Kingston. Was a good example of a match where the work was solid, but the bigger problem was credibility. Because Kofi can still wrestle, that's not the issue. The issue is buying him as a serious threat to win a singles title in this version of WWE. That's the harder sell right now for Kofi. The match itself had good moments, some nice counters, Grayson Waller hovering around as annoyance, and Penta doing what Penta always does, getting people invested because he feels over everywhere, which is important because Penta has built in energy right now that covers for a lot. He wins, keeps the title, and then immediately raises the stakes by announcing that he'll defend it at WrestleMania in a ladder match. Now, this is where things got interesting because suddenly the match with Kofi stops being the story and it becomes the setup. Dragon Lee, Javon Evans, Rusev, JD McDonough, all of those possible names start circling the ladder. And now the title scene has some life. So while the defense itself was fine, the reveal was what came after. And it was weird because they announced who was going to be in the ladder that night, or maybe the day after. And then at the main event show, the YouTube show or whatever, that's where they did the qualifiers to find out who will compete in that show. So they pre-recorded that before Raw, but they announced the winners before that aired. So thanks WWE for not building that at all and confusing the crap out of us. But thank you. You're doing great. Anyway, Seth Rollins cleared, medically cleared. Heyman hits panic mode and Gunther chokes the living crap out of him. Paul Heyman spends most of the night playing games with Adam Pearce and pretending he didn't need to read his email. That paid off when Pearce finally told him that Boston police dropped the charges against Seth Rollins. And Seth is now medically cleared. Immediately, the whole mood changes. Seth appeared with a chair, attacks Heyman from behind, looks ready to stomp him, and then Gunther drags Seth out and chokes him, unconscious near the announcer's table. Thank God Gunther has a match. It would have been great if they built this up somehow. not just him showing up. Maybe he'll tell us next week why he chose. It's going to be hard to sell for 2 weeks, but okay. It gave at least these three men something to do for WrestleMania. Heyman, I don't know. Heyman gets the fear. Seth gets the rage. Gunther gets the cold authority. And that's exactly what Gunther needed. He did not come in screaming. He did not come in acting wild. He came in like a man who saw an opening, shut the whole thing down, and then pointed towards WrestleMania like the end was already written. That's how Gunther should be presented. But he should have been presented this a few weeks ago. Now, there are rumors that Gunther is going to retire Seth at WrestleMania. Stop. Not yet. Seth still has a few more months. I think he still has a year in his contract, but regardless. But yeah, they fumbled the IC ladder match. But anyway, we'll see. Maybe Gunther saw an opportunity to be in the good favors of Paul Heyman, so he took this as an opportunity to do that. And by doing so, maybe Heyman will help him in the future by being his rep, maybe help him get towards the title again. That would be a good thing that they present. Will they present it that way? We'll find out. The most life-threatening match of the night, unless that was fake as well. Io Sky versus Raquel. They had a good effort, but a scary moment. Io Sky versus Raquel Rodriguez was one of those matches where the effort was there, but the scariest moment is what people are probably going to remember. Io brought her usual speed and chaos. Raquel brought the power, and structurally the match made sense. But the dive where Io crashed into the situation at ringside looked rough and scary as hell because she almost broke her neck there. And that instantly changes how you watch the rest of the match, because now you are not just watching the story, you are checking to make sure everybody's okay, especially poor Io. Raquel gets the win out of all of this, and there is an ongoing question with her presentation right now. At one point, people thought she was selling too much. Now it feels like she swings the other way and barely sells enough. There has to be a middle ground there somewhere. Still, the result gives her momentum, and WWE clearly has bigger plans in motion around the women's division heading into WrestleMania. Now, I'm never going to show that video. You guys can find it on X, but it looks scary as hell. Her almost breaking her neck. Like, I can't imagine to retire early. Anyway, Roman Reigns and CM Punk obviously closed the show, but with violence. We come to the main segment. Roman Reigns enters MSG, gets the full aura OTC treatment as he always does, and before long, CM Punk comes out with his fist taped up like he showed up already planning for a fight. Then the fight starts. No promo, no long talk, no fake outs, no wasted time. They just got at it. Punk used the taped fist. Roman lands the Superman punch. They brawl to the floor, into the announcer area, through officials, through security, through Adam Pearce attempt to restore order. Obviously, he's poor at his job. Punk clears the announcer table. Roman fights back. Finisher gets teased. Bodies get blocked by officials. And then Punk finally power bombs Roman through the table. That was the image WWE wanted. Punk standing tall in chaos. Roman laid out. MSG losing their minds. Punk practically soaking in the moment, like he stole the whole show. And honestly, he kind of did, because this segment had urgency. It had violence. It had the feeling that these two genuinely cannot coexist right now. That's exactly what you want in closing Mania Angle. No cute stuff, and definitely not overthinking it, just hatred and impact. And that worked for them. So, this Raw was not about giving you a wrestling heavy masterpiece. It was about pouring gasoline on the WrestleMania season. And on that level, WWE absolutely succeeded. You had Cody getting challenged on the psychological level. The Usos took a major L this week. Liv and Stephanie turning their issue even uglier. Brock and Oba feeling like a collision waiting to happen. Seth getting dragged right back into danger. Gunther looks like a killer. And CM Punk ended the night in the strongest possible position. Was it a crowded show? Yeah. Was it overstuffed? At times, absolutely. Did every part of it felt elegant? Absolutely not. But did it feel important? Yeah. And during WrestleMania season, that counts for a lot. Now, the question is whether WWE can turn all the noise into actual payoff once the bell rings in Las Vegas. Because the build is loud right now, very loud. But the payoff has to match it. And that's where I want to hear from you. Was this Raw exciting chaos heading into WrestleMania, or did WWE try to cram too much into one night? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching. If the T hit right, hit the like and subscribe. See you on the next one.